Welcome to TTM Cast, your sports collectibles podcast. Sponsored by CGC Cards, card grading all in one place. CGC Cards is devoted to expert grading of collectible cards, including TCGs, sports cards, and non-sports cards. Sponsored by Collects, the free app for scanning and valuing your cards. Use the app to build your collection and buy and sell with other collectors. Turn the hobby into your side hustle. And by sportscollectorsdaily.com. If it happens in the hobby, you'll find it on sportscollectorsdaily.com. And sponsored by gemrate.com. The latest grading statistic from the 4 major grading companies is just a click away. Visit gemrate.com. It's free. And now, here's our host, Drew Pelto.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the TTM Cast podcast, your sports collectibles podcast. We're going to be talking about all things related to TTM, cards, autographs, collecting, you name it. If it's sports collectibles related, we're going to probably cover it at some point in here. We're in season 6. This is episode 7 here on March 2nd. You're listening to a nationally ranked sports collectibles podcast. I am Drew Pelto, joined once again by my co-host, Troy Rutter. We've been off the last week, so Troy, good to get back into things here after a little short vacation there.
That was a quiet week, I think, TTM wise and not doing the show. So glad to be back in the saddle here.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about spring training a little bit later on, but I mean, spring training finally underway here. Got the first few games going here over the last, about 8 or 10 days or so, and several big free agents still out there, but what's his name? Bellinger now signing with the Cubs here this week as it's one that's been kind of rumored for a while that was going to happen. He was going to go back to the Cubs again, and finally happened officially as of a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So yeah, it's not too big of a surprise, I'd say, but I'm more surprised by the fact that you've got Blake Snell is still out there, and a couple other big names that still have not signed yet. Mostly the Scott Boras guys. I'm sure he's just holding out, trying to get every last penny he possibly can for his guys.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll still be a few surprises before the season gets too far ahead, but. Yeah, definitely keeping an ear out for all those changes.
Yeah. Aside from that, not a whole lot really going on. Because, we're in kind of that dead spot in between the All-Star game and the trading deadline for both basketball and hockey. So not a whole ton there. Formula One racing kicking off this week, of course, as well. So at least getting that going on, I guess, is a kind of a good thing.
Are you a big racing guy?
I'm not. My wife absolutely loves it. She was watching the one from Bahrain, I believe it was today, and so she's checking that one out a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I've never gotten into it much. I do TTM some NASCAR here and there just because those guys are such great signers, so I send off to a lot of them. But no, never have gotten into Formula One much just yet.
Me either. We used to have when I worked at the local ABC affiliate, we had a kind of a local stock car and modified racing show that we did every Sunday, I think it was. But other than that, I've really haven't gotten much into it. So I like hearing about it, but actually sitting down and watching them, not quite my thing.
Yeah, I'll check out a couple laps. Right when it starts out and everything, and you get the guys kind of jockeying for position, a few crashes in there and stuff. That's always fun. Last couple laps, same kind of a thing there. Everybody fighting for that last spot. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I just can't really get into it that much either. So, yeah. Well, as I said, we were off last week. I was out at spring training, spent 8 days out in Arizona, and, it went pretty well. I got 324 cards signed while I was out there, so very happy with my results on that. So I figured, I was going to go through real quick, name who I saw each day, and maybe my biggest one that I got from each of those teams, just because, I could sit here and do an hour and a half just naming off everything I was able to get. So I'll just do that real quick. And Troy, if you got any comments, questions, anything like that you want to chime in with when I'm rattling these off, please go right ahead. So I'm not hogging all the time on this, but
yeah, we'll do. 324 is quite the haul. So
yes, it is, including I think 30 some for the sets and stuff that I'm working on as well. So super happy with that. But it started out Wednesday because I flew in on the red eye. I had to be up at 3:00 in the morning to go over to the airport and be on my flight at 6. So I literally got up. My wife and I threw my bags in the car, drank a 20-ounce Mountain Dew on the way to the airport there to wake myself up. Got on my plane, had my little bag of graham crackers, and by about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that was still all I was running off of. I'm not sure how I made it through that day there, but it was good. I went straight for the Rangers when I first got in. Their complex opened at 10 o'clock, and I got there about 9 or so, which turned out just fine. Got to hang out with a few guys I knew from the DFW area here. So I got the Rangers first. Biggest names I got there, John Gray was signing literally everything. You could drop 20 cards on him, and he would have sat there chatting with you and signing every single thing. I had only 3 with me, which I mean, that's plenty for me, I think. So, but I got that. Ian Kinsler was probably the other biggest name that I got out of those guys. He was around doing some instructor stuff there with the Rangers. From there, I went over to the Guardians camp, and they don't really have good access to their fields at all. You can't get any autographs during their practice at all, which is kind of lame. Not really sure what the reasoning is behind it. They say it really started kind of around COVID and everything, but it's like nobody else is doing that. Nobody else has cut off access the way the Guardians have, and it's like it's not like you've got Ohtani and Yamamoto coming into your camp like the Dodgers do. So I don't know what the Cleveland's reasoning was for that, but I at least did their parking lot. I got Gavin Williams on one of my Sweet Spot customs, and who else? Probably Austin Hedges is probably the other kind of biggest name there, which is not a very big name at all. But unfortunately, he was the Guardians' biggest free agent signing this offseason. So I did at least get him, got a selfie with him. My wife absolutely loves him, so I had to get the photo with him at least. So had a little bit of time to be able to get Cincinnati on their way out. Got Tyler Stevenson, was probably the big name that I got out of those. The Thursday, I went over to Peoria to go and check out the Mariners camp. Biggest name there, Luis Castillo, their top starting pitcher there, and George. Well, I got George Kirby a couple days later, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, Castillo. I mean, he probably spent a good 20 minutes just signing and chatting and taking photos with everybody. Really great guy there. So very, very happy to be able to get him. Let's see. After that, I tried to go for Cincinnati, and they let their practice out early that day. So by the time I got over their parking lot, all the players were pretty much already gone. There were a couple fans there, and they said, "Yeah, that guy's gone, that guy's gone, that guy's gone off my list." I'm like, well, that's everybody I needed. We'll see y'all later. So went back over to Cleveland since they share a complex with them. And the big one for Cleveland, at least, was Anthony Gose, who is not exactly a big name. He's started out as an outfielder in the Blue Jays organization, played for a couple other teams, and kind of failed as an outfielder, so they converted him into a pitcher. And he's been a bullpen guy. He's, lighting up the gun at 98 every time, just about, that he's out there. So good arm as a reliever there, and not a good signer at all. He tries to avoid everybody. I've gotten him once in my entire life before this. Pulled over, signed 3 cards, and was about as pleasant as Anthony Gose gets. But got him at least, so super happy to add him in. Went back to Peoria again, trying to get the Padres. They were leaving. Steven Wilson was the only one that signed coming out of there, so nothing really great there. Friday, I went to the White Sox, and this was a day of both quantity and quality, which is kind of rare. Usually it's one or the other. You got to kind of choose there. But over that day on Friday there, between the White Sox and the Giants, I got 70 cards signed, which is my best single day that I had out there. And to go along with that, I was told this, because they've got their kind of big 3 players there of Yohan Moncada, Luis Robert, and Eloy Jimenez. And I was warned going into it, like, yeah, don't count on any of those guys. Your most likely one out of those is going to be Moncada, and even he's kind of tough. I got all 3 in a 5-minute span while I was in there. So that was a huge hit, huge, great day there. Got Dylan Cease as well. So it was a day, I mean, yeah, some big names right there, 70 cards signed total, and set hits on 3 out of those 4 guys. Moncada is not in the set, but I got the other guys at least. So super happy to get those. And it's like at that point as well, hell, anything I get after this is just a bonus. So I figured, let's go over to Scottsdale, try the Giants out as they're leaving, and got Pat Burrell right when I got in there. And I mean, he's the guy who's tough to get. I mean, I tried to get him 20 years ago when he was a player, and he completely ignored us. This time he comes over, signs 3 cards with no problem. So got him, got Matt Williams on a card, and Mike Yastrzemski as well. Super nice guy right there. He'll sit there and sign just about everything you want. I just had my 2 set cards, but he knocked them out with no problem. Let's see, going through the photos here. What do we got next? So next up was Saturday. Fun story here. I went over Saturday and I was hanging out early outside of the Royals complex. I share it with the Rangers there. And I got talking with a couple other graphers, and I mentioned to one of them, I wrote this article for Sports Collectors Daily about like the 10 toughest living baseball autographs. And one of them says, yeah, I read that article, and I disagree with every single one on your list.
Oh, no.
The good thing is, though, it's something like that. It's like, well, hey, you're reading it at least. And so it's like, I mean, it's getting eyes on it, it's getting clicks, and all I want to do is promote discussion on this kind of stuff. That's why anybody writes, really, is, promote discussion on that, and it definitely did. So it was kind of cool there. And got to actually I ended up hanging out with that guy that said that there's several more times during the week. So nice guy. Alan Dicker is the guy. I'm sure some of the listeners out there might know him from spring training or from elsewhere. So, but yeah, went and got the Royals on over at their practice. Biggest ones I got a Salvador Perez. I was able to get him on a set card, so very happy to add him in. Got a jersey card signed by Mike Sweeney that I pulled from a pack 20 years ago and I've had sitting here. So got that signed at least. So I was super happy to get him. I was finally able to go over and get the Reds in full, in earnest as they were leaving their practice that day. They didn't let it out early this time, but I got Tyler Callahan again, which I needed on a set card, and Hunter Green was probably the other big name out of those guys. So did pretty well with the Reds.
Sherman Oaks.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see. Sunday, I went down to back to Peoria again to go for the Padres, go for them inside their practice. And the big three that I was really keying in on for the Padres, I was hoping to get Darvish, because I'd heard he was signing quite a bit. Hideo was there. He would have been a good one. And Trevor Hoffman. Those are my big three. And I was able to get Hoffman. He signed my rookie card with his Hall of Fame 18 on it as well. Didn't see Darvish or Nomo, but I do know Darvish was there that day because somebody else was able to get him at some point. But the big one I was able to get, and he signed 2 cards for him, which was the big shocker, was Fernando Tatis Jr. He got done taking batting practice, walked right off, and there's a group of us waiting in a line there. He just went right down the line and knocked everything out. I'm like, he's been tough to get since Double-A, so I was super shocked to be able to get him. So
wow.
From there, I tried to go, let's see. I forget where I tried to go next. I tried to drive somewhere else, and I went to the Brewers facility. Nobody was around, and they had this big sign outside the gate that says no autographs right by the exit. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to waste my time here. So I drove back to Peoria, got the Mariners. They were leaving from their game. That's when I was able to finally get, what's his name? George Kirby coming out of there. Got Bryce Miller, Dan Wilson, a couple big names right there at least. Let's see. The next day, was that the next day that I did? Yeah, my stuff's out of order here in these photos, I think, a little bit. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, Monday I was able to go for the Rockies over at their facility. I tried to do the Cubs early on and didn't see anybody waiting around. Didn't really know quite where to go either. So I'm like, you know what? Rockies are 10 minutes up the road. We'll go hit them. So went to the Rockies. Nothing really great there. A lot of the guys said, hey, yeah, I'll sign when I come back. And then when they came back, they took the back door in, so we couldn't get to them. Love when they do that. Yeah. I did at least get Bradley Zimmer and Kyle Freeland on stuff, and Freeland was a set need, so happy to get him. Went over to the A's and Diamondbacks game. D-backs, the big hit for me was Christian Robinson, because I needed him for a set. Got him. For the A's, a lot of set hits out of this. I was looking at J.J. Bleday and Brent Rooker for sets as well. High quantity day out of them. I mean, I got I don't remember how many I got total. It's probably over 50 combined there between everybody that day. So another solid one there, but not quite the same quality. But I mean, it's the A's. You take what you can get out of a team like that. So happy to get what I could there, and at least got to talk to a few fans. And one of them was a photographer from Canada who got a few photos of me in action. So I'm hoping to use that in my Sports Collectors Daily article this week. So let's see. That was Monday. Tuesday was over to the Angels camp. And Joe Adell, who usually doesn't sign much, when he does, he personalizes. He came over, signed one for everybody. So super happy to get him out there. Carson Fulmer signed there and in their game. I went to the Angels and Brewers game right after that. But yeah, I got Fulmer at both spots there. Miguel Sano signed inside the ballpark. Mickey Moniak signed inside the stadium as well. Who else? Got Evan White. And then for the Brewers, I was at least able to get Sal Frelick and Garrett Mitchell. Frelick signed before the game, Mitchell signed after, and they each knocked out a card for me. Frelick signed a ton for people, but I only had the one card of him, and I always hate when that happens, when it's like I know a guy is super nice and signs everything, and, well, I have my one here, and then I see him go down and sign, 5 for another guy. It's like, well, I should have probably picked up a couple extras there, but I just went with what I had here on hand for this trip. And then let's see. Wednesday, the last day, I tried to do the Cubs also on Tuesday. Nobody signed at all. Tried to do the Cubs again Wednesday. Nobody signed. We even saw Bellinger walked in, and it looked like he might do it. There's only 3 of us there, but there's a camera crew who wanted to get him entering the building and all this stuff. So yeah, wasn't able to get him. But yeah, nobody for the Cubs signed. Went over to the Brewers, and they had a home game, so all of their major league guys were on the fields closest to the building, which you don't have access to. So I just had to do the backfields, get a few minor league guys, which, I mean, I was able to at least get Xavier Warren, Freddie Zamora, and Chad Patrick back there. Drove from there over to Goodyear to get the Guardians and Diamondbacks. Their game, tried the Diamondbacks side and didn't have much success. Corbin Carroll signed, but it was mostly to group off to my side and didn't get down to us. Same thing with Jordan Lawler. I did manage at least to get a couple of coaches in. Damian Easley was probably the best out of the coaches there, and I got a Pavin Smith for my set. So overall, really good week out there. I mean, 324 cards, you can't go wrong with that. 30 set hits, can't go wrong with that either. And a few big namers, including a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, there's a brief recap of my week right there. Troy, how have your last couple of weeks been? What have you been up to here?
Oh, just kind of, I got done with basketball and
Nice.
That's done finally.
Okay.
I enjoy it, but I'm glad it's
how
over.
the team look this year.
We're, like I've said, it's the D team, which is the last team, and I have supposed to have two different teams. We combined them into one, and I think we only got one win, but it was good. Everybody had fun, as
That's
they
good.
say. So
yeah.
But other than that, it was kind of a slow week TTM wise, as we'll talk about here in a little bit. And I just kind of prepped 100 envelopes and returned envelopes, got everything returned address stamped, ready to go for when I actually have time to go through the boxes, the fuel, and get those out, because that big surge I did on January 2nd is kind of dwindling down now.
Yep. Well, there you go. Well, hopefully we'll see some returns here. Good luck with all those. And I've got to do the same thing. I got to get on about maybe another 10 or 20 here this week and get back on the horse after doing all the in-person stuff. So it's always a little weird shifting gears like that.
I think your 324 make up for a few TTMs. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try to go back and do 10 from last week. So I'm trying to do like 10 a week if I can, and I'm not going to go back and do 10 for last week at all. I'm good on that. So yeah. Well, for this week's show, no interviews this week. We're going to have a new segment calling it Grapher DIY. Kind of give a chance to give a little bit of a how-to on some things in the autograph world, and this week we're going to be talking some international TTMing. I know we had a question about that a while back, so I wanted to do an answer on that and kind of provide a little bit of a brief tutorial on that. So in addition to that, we have all of our regular segments, Baker's Dozen, covering all things in the world of all things in news of the collectibles hobby. Something like that. I'm stumbling over everything here. See, I take a week off and I can't remember how I word everything. This is great. We've got Making the Grade after Grapher DIY, where we will talk about all things from the grading portion of the hobby. Stamp of Approval, where Troy and I give our 2 thumbs up to something from the previous week. Could be just about anything. We've got the Vern Rapp Minute, covering deaths in the world of sports, celebrity, music, movies, politics, anybody that you might consider TTMing if they've passed away. We will try to let you know about that. And of course, the main reason why we all are here, it is our TTM returns. If you want to get in contact with us, that is very easy to do. Troy, what is that email address?
The email address that you could reach both of us at is ttmcast@yahoo.com.
Ruthie Baker, Jeff's daughter, handles all of that for us, and any question or comments, she'll usually pass them on to us, and we'll try to get them answered either on the show or via email to you guys. If you want to contact me directly, that is dfwgrapher@gmail.com. Well, it's kind of an extended intro there, trying to recap all the spring training stuff. So with that being said, let's finally get into things here with Baker's Dozen.
Baker's Dozen, sponsored by SportsCollectorsDaily.com.
Smart collectors turn to Sports Collectors Daily to stay up to date. From new releases to incredible collections hitting the auction block, news from inside the business of sports collectibles, and much more, Sports Collectors Daily has it, all with no subscription cost. SC Daily also delivers a live look at the most watched sports card auctions on eBay for every sport. Sign up to get the headlines in your email for free, or just visit the website whenever you like. With 16,000 stories in the archive going back 16 years, there is always plenty to read at SportsCollectorsDaily.com.
Baker's Dozen is a news summary of all things from the world of collectibles from the previous week. I want to remind you, Collects. It's a great app. COLLX.app is their address. Has all sorts of info on your cards. You can find out, what your card is, how much it goes for. If you're looking at trying to buy something, you can kind of price compare through there. And they even have their own marketplace. You can get a $10 coupon for that marketplace. Just send us your Collects name, your email address. We'll send it on to them, and we will get that $10 coupon into your account on Collects. Once again, 5-Star Dynasty. I believe they still have that Instagram bonus for any listeners who buy any of their products. Instagram for them is 5-Star Dynasty Game. You can find them at 5stardynasty.com. I believe they're still doing pre-orders on all of their sets. And like I said, if you're on Instagram, buy one of their sets, message them, let them know that you're a TTM Cast listener. You might get an extra bonus there with your purchase as well. And once again, a reminder that I have a weekly article on Sports Collectors Daily. I briefly touched on that earlier, a couple of those earlier, actually. And didn't do one this past week. I'm going to have one upcoming this week about everything that I've did in spring training there. I have a full recap on that. I sent it over to Rich Mueller, the editor there, and I warned him, hey, my recap here is 9 pages single-spaced in Microsoft Word, so go ahead and whittle that down if you want to, or even if you have any ideas for how I can rewrite it in the next couple of days to shorten it up, please give me your ideas on that. So there will be an article of some sort on my spring training adventures coming up on there. A lot of photos in it as well, and I think I even put in a picture of every card that I got signed on there. It's gonna come out fairly small, unfortunately, so hopefully they'll have a way to zoom in on it. But yeah, it's fun to write all that stuff there, and hopefully people are getting something out of that as well. So, Baker's Dozen, hobby news. Biggest news in the collectibles world this week, PSA and Collectors. Collectors is the parent company of PSA. They have purchased SGC. So they say they're going to continue running SGC as a separate grading company, but still you've got now 2 of the big 4 graders under the same umbrella there with Collectors. So very surprising right there, but I think PSA has something like an 85% market share or something like that, or it's 70 to 80%, somewhere in that range, and SGC somewhere around to 7% there, but that's going to put them at like 85% total, I think, now between those 2 companies. So Collectors trying to compete with Fanatics to some degree, I guess, but on more the hobby side rather than the industry side.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
And up in the Nationals news, those who are going to the Sports Collectors Show this year, they've added a couple of Hall of Fame teammates from the 1999 champion Mets, and that would be Mr. who I need 4 cards of for 1991 Don Russ, Ricky Henderson, and Mike Piazza. They've both been added to the list of signers in the time that we've been away from the podcast. And so if you want to find out more about those signings, you can visit nsccshow.com and see the list, the ever-growing list of people who are signing at the Nationals.
Teammates on that nationally champion Mets team, they also both played for the Padres, the A's, and the Dodgers, in addition to that Mets team, though never at the same time on those other ones besides that. So any collectors of those teams out there, I'm sure they'll be needing both of those guys.
Yeah, that's a big couple of big set names for those 90 sets, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, Clemente Lisi and I talked a couple weeks ago about the 1979-80 O-Pee-Chee hockey case that surfaced, an unopened case of that set. That's the blue bordered one, the Wayne Gretzky rookie card. And Clemente and I were talking about the auction of that was coming up. It has sold for $3.72 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Heritage estimated it was going to go for between $2.5 to $3 million, so they even surpassed that. That case could contain as many as 24 Wayne Gretzky rookie cards out of it. So somebody might have a chance of making their money back there, especially, I mean, only 2 copies of it have ever been graded at a Gem Mint 10. That set was notorious for some a lot of miscutting, a lot of off-centered stuff, some rough edges on things. But I mean, if you come across a Gem 10 out of there, make it a third one they find, that's going to pay for the price of the case right there. But definitely going to be tough to come across there. But cool to see that sell, and I'll be interested to see if the buyer decides to open that up and see what they can pull out of it.
And tell us who he is or she is, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about who it was or anything like that just yet either.
Yeah. Also a T206 Ty Cobb card with the Ty Cobb brand tobacco back. That is also up for auction or going up for auction at Heritage Auctions. And according to, what I read on this, that there are fewer than 30 of those known to exist. I'm not a big 206 fan or vintage fan, so don't know too much about this card, but this one is graded a 2.5 by SGC and is already approaching about $300,000. And I haven't done an update on that, but that is what it was up as of a couple days ago. And that auction, if you're interested, you might be interested there. I don't know. The auction ends on March 21st. So there's still time to get in on that if you want.
I'm definitely interested. I just don't have the money to be able to get that there. But yeah, you mentioned 30, only fewer than 30 known to exist. And just to give you an idea, the T206 Honus Wagner, 50 of those known to exist. So this is even rarer than that. But still, only only, quote unquote, approaching $300,000. So a little surprising that, that big of a name, that rare, but not hitting the Wagner level just yet. Got some new releases to talk about here as well, going from the Uber vintage there all the way up to the brand new stuff. Got some hockey that's going to be hitting here this week. March 6th, it'll be coming out. Upper Deck Series 2 hockey, the 23-24 season. And, of course, the big name out of that one, Connor Bedard's rookie card is in there. You're going to see 12 cards per pack, 12 packs per box, and 6 of those Young Guns rookie cards per box. So not the greatest chance of pulling Bedard out of a single box, but you got at least a shot at it there, though. Definitely some Bedard mania there going on in the pricing, as pre-sales are running $300 a box right now.
Wow. Also coming up on March 8th is 2023 Panini Spectra Football. Those are 4 cards per pack with 4 packs per box. And with that, you are likely to get 4 autographs and 4 memorabilia cards per box. Pre-sale price for that one up there a little bit at $1,200.
Not a big week for the releases there. That's really the only 2 out of the big 4 sports there. So how about we take a look at some upcoming shows here? We got a lot of those going on here over the next, next weekend. I try to focus on for all these. But next week, the big show in Philadelphia, the Philly show will run March 8th through the 10th. That'll be at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center in Oaks, Pennsylvania. The hours and admission costs kind of vary a bit by day. I didn't want to give a full rundown of those. You can check that out easily enough on their website. But 27 autograph guests are going to be at this show. Biggest names, Frank Thomas and Robin Yount are going to be out there. Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles is going to be signing autographs there. You also have Chase Utley, longtime Philly above-average player there. I don't want to call him a great necessarily, but very good player for a number of years. Hall of Fame football coach Dick Vermeil will be there, and a whole lot more. If you want to find out more about the Philly show, you can just go to simply phillyshow.com.
And Cardboard Promotions is putting on the Mansfield Card Show on March 10th. That is at the Envision Hotel in Mansfield, Massachusetts. And that'll run you about $3 for admission to that. And the hours are 8:30 to 2. Going to have Sam Horn and hockey player Adam Oates signing there. So hopefully I said everybody knows I mispronounce hockey players' names all the time. So hopefully it's not Otis or something like that.
Yep, you're good. It's definitely Oates.
I'm thinking I was pretty good on that one. But,
yeah.
It's just keeping it real, And again, you can find out more about that at cardboardpromotions.com.
Yeah. Cardboard Promotions is actually running 2 shows over the weekend there. You've got the Mansfield one you just mentioned there. They're also running one over in Dedham, Massachusetts at the Holiday Inn. Same day, same time. They're both March 10th, 8:30 to 2. The show over in Dedham is going to have Hockey Hall of Famer Jerry Cheevers, also Mike Gorman, and the famous Bruins anthem singer Rene Rancourt will be out there as well. Once again, cardboardpromotions.com is the place to go to check out all the info on those 2 shows.
Up on March 10th as well is the Mount Kisco Card Show. That is at American Legion Hall in Mount Kisco, New York. That'll be $1 to get in from about 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the big name right there is Howard Johnson, who is signing for about $30 for, it just says $30, so probably everything for that. You get into some of these shows and it's flats for this and balls this, but just $30 for Howard Johnson there at the Mount Kisco Card Show.
Yes. A couple shows that are coming up as well next weekend. No autograph signers of these that I know of, but worth noting. The Kane County Card Show at the Kane County, Illinois Fairgrounds. That's March 9th. They're going to have 150 tables of dealers set up there. Admission is only $2. You can find out more about that at premiercardshows.com.
And in North Carolina, we have the Kannapolis Card Show, March 9th at the Atrium Health Ballpark there in Kannapolis. The hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. They're going to have over 100 tables with admission of $5. And you can find out more about that at sportswaxpromotions.com.
Never checked out a card show at a ballpark. That sounds really cool there. You've got the Cannonballers, I believe, is a team there at their home park. So kind of cool to have it set up there.
I don't think I've ever, here we only have the Iowa Cubs, obviously, and locally, but I don't think we've ever had a card show there, probably because it's cold most of the year.
Right. Yep. Last one here for any of you that are out at spring training. You might want to go and check this one out at Glendale, Arizona at the Renaissance Hotel. They have the Front Row Card Show. They'll be running next weekend on March 9th and 10th. Admission's $10 a day. It'll be running from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. 200 tables will be set up there, and you can find out more info there at frontrowcardshow.com. Well, that about does it for Baker's Dozen. Let's go ahead and move on to this new segment that I want to try out. It's called Grapher DIY.
Ready for some tips and tricks? It's time for Grapher DIY.
Grapher DIY is just kind of a little how-to segment here on various things in the autograph hobby. I mean, we can cover anything that anybody's got a question on about how to do something. I think we'll try to cover it in there. We'll try to do that about once a month here, but we had a question a couple of weeks ago from it was either a TTM Cast listener or a Sports Collectors Daily reader. Mike Danzy is his name, and he wrote in asking me about, hey, I want to send out Masanori Murakami's rookie card to him over in Japan. I believe it's from the 66 top set, if I remember right. He shares it with another player on there, and Murakami's been an excellent signer here lately. I've got to get a hold of that card myself and try to send off to him. But you're saying, how do I do international stuff? Is it the same as sending to in the U.S.? What do I have to do on my returns? Anything like that? And so let's talk a little about that. Troy, do you ever do any international mailing at all?
I've done a few in the past to the UK, but most of my international mailing is just to Canada, and that one is super easy. You could even order Canadian stamps from the Canadian Post, and they actually send them to you in the Canadian Post, U.S. Postal Service, to your house, so you could actually order the stamps there. But I've never actually gone the whole internet or international reply coupon or sending cash or anything like that to any other place other than the UK, which you could easily get stamps as well. So I'm not too familiar with it. Obviously, the mechanics are the same as far as packaging and everything else, but interested to hear if you've had any experience with that.
I actually have done quite a bit because, I mean, I've mentioned before doing indoor soccer autographs and everything, and a lot of hockey as well. So there's a lot of guys who, played over here in the MISL for a few years and returned back over to Europe. NHL, guys have played over here and then gone back home to Europe and such. And even in baseball, a few of them have gone to Japan, which I've sent to before. But I'll tell you, the international reply coupon, unfortunately, the post offices still accept those,
right,
but they no longer sell them. So, I mean, that's what has really screwed me up quite a bit, too. Because I was thinking, I can just get those. And then I look and saw online that, nope, they've discontinued those a few years ago. It's like, oh, great. That's pleasant. Thanks, guys. So, unfortunately, what is it, the United Postal Union or whatever, no longer makes those, no longer sells them, but they still accept them if you come across one somewhere, have some on hand. But it's just like you said, it's just like kind of US TTMing. You just have to worry about your return postage is the biggest thing. So whenever you mail outside the country, you do need extra postage to send it outside there, because here inside the US it's 68 cents right now, right, for a stamp.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the international ones, it costs a little bit more. It's the U.S. Global Forever stamps. As of February, those are running $1.55 each, but you can get those right through the U.S. Postal Service at any post office. They should have them on hand. So they're kind of cool looking. They've got this kind of round shape with little spikes going around it, usually with a flower or the moon or something like that on it. Very, very distinguishable, easy to spot there. And yeah, it should be available at any post office. But as long as you have $1.55 in postage, it'll get there. But that's the easiest way to do it, is with one of those.
Yeah.
For your return, I
was going to say I use the kiosk most of the time, so I just buy I just set the value at whatever it's going to be and go from there.
There you go. Yeah, I always forget. So I always do the kiosk for any packages and stuff. I do it occasionally for regular stamps. I always forget that you can do the $1.55 ones there as well if you need to. So there you go. Use the kiosk if you want to as well. It's an easy way to do it. The tough part is the return postage. Like you said, at least with Canada, you can order it straight through Canada Post. It's super easy to get their return stamps out of there. It can get a little tougher to some of the other countries. I know the UK, you said you've mailed to England before, and I have as well. And you can actually buy it through, I believe it's the Royal Mail over there in the UK. And you might have to hunt around a little bit on their site and find their shop and everything. But yeah, I've ordered through them with no problem before. I've done it with Sweden before as well, a couple other countries. I forget off the top of my head, but if you can't find it through there, or if they won't send to the U.S., because I know some places might not send to the U.S., you can always look around and see if you can find a stamp dealer somewhere. There are people who sell stamps to collectors out there. And so that's how I used to do a lot of them early on there, is I found it was Herrick Stamps was the name of it. And unfortunately, they've since closed down. But they were an excellent source for, especially ones I needed for the former Yugoslavian countries when I was sending to soccer players there. got a few through there. eBay can work as well. That's how I got my most recent batch of Japanese stamps, was just finding somebody on eBay who had them. The tough part there is that a lot of times they're selling, already used canceled stamps to collectors. So you got to kind of wade through a little bit of a mess there to find those sometimes. But yeah, hunt around a little bit. You can find them there. And actually, if you go on my website, I've tried to help out collectors with this one. If you go to off on the left-hand side, up on the top little drop-down menu, I have a links and info page. And under that links and info page, there's also an international postage costs page. And what I've tried to do there is I've tried to put on there several countries, just anywhere that you might send to as a sport collector. There's a few others out there that I'm sure that there are teams in, but I don't foresee, for example, anybody sending like, Kazakhstan or Vanuatu or anything like that anytime soon. But I did at least, put in any of the major countries where you see a lot of baseball, soccer, and hockey players come from. It's on there. It gives you the price of what kind of stamp you're going to need. So like if you're sending to Australia, for example, you're going to need an Australian $3.50 stamp to get it back. It's approximate price in U.S. money, which in that case is $2.47, and a link to where you can buy them. I may need to update some of the stuff since then, but there should be links on there for where you can buy them. I've bought the Australian ones from Australia before with no problem. Several other countries are on there, so if you need some info and need to figure out where to get them, dfwgrapher.com. Go to the links and info page to the international postage costs, and hopefully that'll help you out.
Yeah, there's usually a forum on any of the collector sites there that offer, trying to collect people or connect people together for stamps and stuff like that. That's also another resource that you can try. Just look for like a stamp trade forum or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's always a great one too. I know there was a hockey forum that I used to go on quite a bit. That there's a guy in Slovakia on there that I was able to get some Slovakian stamps from him. U.S. and Canada stamp trading is always going on there because especially again in the hockey community, you'll see a lot of that. And yeah, I'm sure there's probably something on sportscollectors.net or somewhere like that as well that might have a thread on it too. So if you're on collectors forums, that's a great call right there. Check those out as well. So Troy, any other thoughts on this? Any thoughts, ideas, anything like that for anyone out there looking to do this?
I would kind of play it a little closer to the vest. You don't want to go and buy, let's say, $100 in Japanese postage at one time. I still have some kiosk stamps from 2018 to go that are $1.50, and I have to add postage to it now. So it doesn't expire, but man, you might have to add a few cents if you buy it and don't use it for a few years.
It's true, yes. So to go along with what you said there, it might help too if all you're going to do is like send one or two to Japan or something like that. Maybe find another couple other collectors and split the costs out with them, and you can buy maybe a batch of like 10 or 20 stamps that way instead of just having buy one or two or something like that. It's going to cut down your shipping costs as well, and just a good way to kind of split things up a little bit that way.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So there you go. That is our first ever Grapher DIY segment. We'll hopefully try to turn that into a monthly thing there and talk about anything you've got questions on for how to do anything in TTMing, in IP autographs. Let us know. Shoot us an email. We'll try to cover it on here. Maybe we'll talk about like building Grapher books or something like that for the in-person ground upcoming one. Something like that. How to prep your cards. Anything like that. There's always questions I'm getting on things like that. So we've got a lot to cover there, I think, on upcoming ones. So with that being said, let's move on to Making the Grade.
Sponsored by CGC Cards. All card grading, all in one place. Certified Guarantee Company, CGC, devoted to the expert grading of collectible cards. Visit cgccards.com today.
Making the Grade is a grading summary. Talk about all things from the world of grading, from the big companies there. And we've got some great numbers here from GemRate. Troy, give us a rundown. What did last week look like for those big four companies?
Yeah, last week was almost about 400,000 total cards, about 395.6 to be exact. And that includes from PSA about 290,000 cards, and that is down 7%. CGC was at 57.4K. That was up 50% from CGC. SGC, 32.3 thousand, which was down 14%. And Beckett was up about 19% this week for 15.1 thousand cards graded. And again, that was about 395.6 thousand total cards.
And that Beckett roller coaster there is doing its thing again. We've got the big three here as well. Comes from gemrate.com. The big three talks where we cover the three biggest risers and the three biggest fallers in grading here, giving you an idea of some of the trends on individual players. And is exclusive to TTM Cast. Big three risers this week. Will Anderson, the Texans, I think linebacker / defensive end, pass rusher, I guess, just call him that, up 99%, nearly doubling from his previous week's total. Clayton Kershaw, the Kershaw mania hitting here a bit as he's getting overshadowed a little bit by his two new Japanese teammates here with the Dodgers, but his card's up in grading this week, 66% increase on his. And Scoot Henderson, we're seeing a 44% increase on his grading as well. CJ Stroud, still seeing some high volume on him. He had two of the week's top three cards. His 2023 Prism and Donruss base cards both were graded over 500 times by the big four grading companies. On the other end, we've got the guys falling. Troy, what do we got there?
Well, we have Nikolai Jokic. I think I did that one right. They're down 14%. Zion Williamson down 34%. And Connor Bedard, who I think you mentioned earlier in your reports, was down 40%.
I bet you're going to see Bedard end up in the top, the big risers here in the next couple of weeks, with that rookie card coming out now within the Upper Deck Series 2. So once again, a big thanks to gemrate.com for providing these numbers to us. And so how about we move on to our TTM Cast stamp of approval.
I bet you're wondering who earned this week's TTM Cast stamp of approval.
TTM Cast stamp of approval is just a kind of a way to give our thumbs up to something. Could be anything. You never know what it's going to be. It might be something collectibles related. It might not be. Typically it's not. As Jeff used to say, it kind of makes us prove that we are not just a bunch of, sports and collectibles nerds and everything out there. Although mine is kind of related to it since it was something I did while out collecting sports stuff. But Troy, we'll let you go first. I know you got looks like a pretty good one here.
Well, I had been following last year's 2023 Best Burger in Iowa, and they narrowed it down to about 6. And lucky for me, the winner of the Best Burger in Iowa is about 9 miles out of town. So I've had the chance to partake more than once, and again last week, and it is Flight Bar and Grill, and it's called the Foundation Burger, and it has pretty much everything, like thick cut bacon, a nice patty. It is phenomenal. And the cool thing about that is after they actually won the Best Burger in Iowa, they donate $1 from each to one of the local schools for their education foundation. So you're giving back to the school, and they're helping to celebrate, their success by raising funds for the local community. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's just a local place, not a chain as far as I know, but it is good. I've taken a couple friends there from out of state, and they approve as well. So I kind of started the food train for this week, I think.
Sounds really great. I'll definitely have to check it out next time I'm out in Iowa Cubs game, which hopefully might have to look into going there again here when I go on my next road trip in a couple of years there.
Yeah, definitely let me know.
Yeah. My stamp of approval for this week is also food related. As you said, you're starting the ball rolling there. We'll just keep it on going here. While I was out in Phoenix this past week, my friend Amir, who we had on the show a few weeks ago, promoting 5-Star Dynasty, sent me a link and said, dude, while you're out there, you have to go to this place. And it's called Maria's Fry Bread and Mexican Food. It's this little tiny place right at the corner, right on the very end of the strip mall. It took me a little bit to find it there when I went there the first time. But right after I got the Giants autographs, I'm like, all right, I've had such a good day. I got to finish this off and see if this place is just as good as Amir says it is. And it absolutely was. It's I would say there are my three best Mexican food experiences are, number one, there's this burrito place in Wichita Falls, Texas, simply called the Burrito Shop. Absolutely incredible. Love their stuff. Number two is this torta place that I have mentioned on the show before during the stamp of approval. It's here just north of Dallas. Has like 30 different kinds of tortas. And I mean, you go in there, it's like $15. You're going to get 2 meals out of the thing. And now I can officially add Maria's Fry Bread and Mexican Food to it as well. They had it's an open-faced fry bread topped with, I think it was refried beans, your choice of meat, in which case Amir recommended I go with they call it Christmas style. You get a red chili and a green chili, both on it. They put on that, lettuce, tomato, cheese over the top. And yeah, it was absolutely incredible. I mean, to the point where I finished it off, I told the dude running things there, I'm like, I will be back here at least one more time before I leave. And so I did. I ran into a guy I used to work with at Panini, and I told him, hey, let's hit this place for food. And so we went there for dinner, and yeah, it was just as good the second time. It was not just, the aftermath of getting 70 autographs that made it seem better than it was. It was legitimately that good. So Amir nailing it on the recommendation. And yeah, I would highly recommend to anybody else. If you're listening here out at spring training, go there. It's Maria's Fry Bread and Mexican food. It's kind of on the eastern side, I believe, of Phoenix, if I remember right, kind of between Phoenix and Scottsdale there. So go and check it out. It is absolutely worth the trip in there. And if you're not at spring training, well, get out to Phoenix and try it next time you're there. So Maria's Fry Bread and Mexican food is my TTM Cast stamp of approval. Let's move on to the Vern Rapp Minute. The Vern Rapp Minute is dedicated to the memory of Mr. Vern Rapp, a former Major League ball player and manager, who our show founder and former host, late Jeff Baker, mailed off to and did not know that he had already died. So we provide this as a service to collectors to let them know who has passed on in the world of sports, celebrity, music, movies, politics. If you consider TTMing them, we're going to try to let you know anybody who's passed on in that world. First off, I want to mention Hector Ortiz passed away this past week after a lengthy battle with cancer. He was a catcher from 1998 through 2002 as a member of the Royals and the Rangers. Later joined the Rangers coaching staff as well. He only appeared in 93 Major League games, was a .288 career hitter in that time. He was a decent TTMer through about 2018. Hector Ortiz was 54 years old.
Next, we have a big set person for those doing the 90s sets. We have Jose De Leon. He played from 83 to 95 for a variety of teams, including Pittsburgh, the Mariners, the Phillies, the Expos, and he led the National League in strikeouts in 1989 with 201. And like I said, he's was a big set person and was an excellent TTMer, which helped a lot through January of this year. So Jose De Leon was 63 years old.
Over into the hockey world, we lost Jean-Guy Talbot this past week. He was a defenseman, played a long time in the NHL. In 1954, he made his debut, finally hung him up in 1971. Played for the Canadiens, the North Stars, the Red Wings, the Blues, and the Sabres. A 7-time Stanley Cup winner with the Montreal Canadiens. That was right when they were in the middle of just dominating everything throughout the 50s through the 70s, pretty much. He was an excellent TTMer during his lifetime as well. Jean-Guy Talbot was 91 years old.
We also lost Andy Russell, who was a linebacker from 1963 to 76 for Pittsburgh. He was a 7 times Pro Bowler and 2 times Super Bowl champ. And he was an excellent TTMer. I'm not sure if I ever got him back, but Andy Russell, again, was 82 years old.
From Hollywood and a little bit of hockey as well, we lost Paul D'Amato this week. Paul was an actor who's in The Deer Hunter, appeared in several episodes of Law & Order and several of its offshoots, and is probably best known for being in the movie Slapshot. So we've actually lost 2 Slapshot cast members here in the last 3 months or so, as Connie Madigan died back in, I believe, either December or January. D'Amato played Tim Dr. Hook McCracken, one of the villains of the Chiefs there in the movie. He's my fellow Emerson College grad and was a hockey player at the school there and throughout his lifetime. Definitely helps when you're appearing in a movie like Slapshot. He actually, I believe, was also a celebrity coach of the Emerson hockey team a few years after I graduated as well. Unfortunately, I missed out on getting to meet him there. Paul was an excellent TTMer through about 2022, also very active on Facebook as well. He was 74 years old.
And we have comedian Richard Lewis, who you might remember from Curb Your Enthusiasm, Robin Hood Men in Tights, and obviously his stand-up comedy that was popular since, I think, the 1970s. He wasn't really a TTMer, but definitely felt his loss this past year in the world of comedy and TV. Richard Lewis was 76 years old.
The thoughts are definitely with everyone who lost anyone this week. And we will move on from here to the TTM returns.
Was our mailbox full this week? Let's take a look at this week's TTM returns.
Well, I had a big couple of weeks here. I mean, it's anytime you can add, 300 autographs in person is always great. But when you can add a few TTMs as well, I mean, that's just an extra bonus right there. And so go through what I got here over the last couple of weeks. A lot of baseball and football out of this one. I think it's actually entirely baseball and football from what I remember. Got back Fred Kendall after about a 10-day wait, former catcher for the Indians, the Padres, I think the Red Sox for a little bit in there. Of course, Jason Kendall's father, former Pirates catcher for a long time. He signed, I believe it was 3 cards I had mailed off to him. Got back another former Indian in Alan Bannister. Also took about 10 days there. Former infielder with them and with the White Sox as well, probably a couple other teams. And if I remember right, he was a minor league coach as well. I think he's on a card with Larry Hardy in one of the 1991 line drive sets. Took about 10 days as well for him to sign 3 cards. Got a Kimball Anders back from the Kansas City Chiefs. He was one of those receiving fullbacks. We had a really good group of receiving fullbacks in the 90s. Of course, you've got like Larry Center one there for the Cardinals, but Kimball Anders, multi-time Pro Bowler, always a threat out of the backfield as a receiver there for the Chiefs. He signed 4 cards, took about a month, maybe, if I remember right, about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, somewhere around there. I got back Mike Rozier, who, of course, was the, I believe, 1983 Heisman winner. Played at Nebraska there when he won that one. Signed 3 cards for me in about 2 or 3 weeks. Paul Gruber, he was a offensive tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a long time. Kind of a guy that I would call criminally underrated because, I mean, he was one of the best left tackles in the game throughout the 90s and completely just ignored and forgotten because he was with Tampa Bay in some very lean years, to put it in a more positive spin, I guess, there. But probably one of their best players during that time. But he signed 4 cards in about 2 weeks for me. Ray Washburn, former pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, among other teams, found a 1963 Post cereal card of him out at a card show a couple of weeks ago. So I saw that at Rich Klein's table for $1, and I'm like, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and throw that into my pile, and mailed that off. Came back in about a week, 2 weeks, somewhere around there with a nice thin tip blue signature on it. It's the first Post cereal card that I think I've ever gotten signed, and went for the vintage ones on those ones to start that one off. Let's see, got back Jeff King, former third baseman and first baseman for the Pirates and the Royals. I think he was a number 1 overall pick in 86, if I remember right as well. I know it was somewhere in there that he was first overall. Took about 2 weeks to get back, and that's one of the few TTMs I've ever seen in Montana to send off to. So got that one back. I can check that off the list, I guess, if I go through and keep track of what states I've gotten stuff from. I got back Gene Garber recently as well, former closer for the Braves and the Royals at the very least. A couple other teams in there too, I think. But one of those submarine pitchers. You always got to love those guys who can, whip it in at 80 miles an hour underhand. It's like, I cannot do that for the life of me, but very good signer, at least. Took about 2 weeks or so on his. I got back Brad Mills, former catcher and third baseman, at least third baseman. I think he may have caught a bit as well for the Expos, a couple other teams. Better known as the manager of the Astros at one point, and was the kind of Tito Francona's right-hand man there in several spots on the coaching staff of the Phillies, the Red Sox, and the Indians with him. They've got the trio rookie card from 82 of him and Bryn Smith and Terry Francona. That's going off to Bryn Smith here in the next week to try to knock out at least 2 of those guys that I can. So get that out, see what we can get done there. And then a couple football ones just came in yesterday to finish out my week. Darren Nelson, former running back of the Vikings and the Chargers, took about 10 days to come back to me, as did Rich Camarillo, who was a punter for several teams, including the Phoenix Cardinals, where he made 3 Pro Bowls in a row in the early 90s. Also signing about, I think, 3 or 4 cards in about 10 days. So solid week at the mailbox in addition to all the in-person stuff. Troy, what do you got?
Well, like I said, the mailbox has been a little slow, but I have a few A-listers for you, literally, because they all end with A in their last name. So first we have Gerald Alexander, who signed a 1992 Don Russ for me. And then a big one for me, three out of three with my 1991 Don Russ. I already have it, though, but Alan Anderson, who played for the Twins, that was about 47 days as well. Local
Alan Anderson, not to be confused with Andy Allenson.
Exactly. Former Iowa coach Steve Alford signed 2 of 2 in 39 days. I'm not a big Iowa fan, I have to admit, but hey, I had these cards. I'm still working on those NBA hoops cards that I've been telling you about that I've been kind of going through. And he personalizes, just so you know, Steve Alford personalizes, which is fine, but those were nice to get back. And ended up with Aaron Altair, 1 of 1 in 31 days. I believe these were to his home, or this was to his home. So wasn't expecting Aaron Altair, so I don't even remember sending it, but it was in the A section, so I probably did.
Always good to get, even if it's a slow week, at least getting a few back there, keep everything rolling there. So good to see a nice variety of years too. I mean, you had the early 90s stuff there, and then the Altair one was, I think it was like 2018, 2019, something like that on that one.
Yeah. Kind of running out of those 2018s to send. I might have to pick up another box. I know I keep seeing that every week, but
well, there you go. So once again, mail still rolling in. Good to see the successes there. And like I said, I know you said you've got 100 or so that you're going to be prepping envelopes on and stuffing envelopes and writing up here pretty soon. I've got to get my weekly 10 here figured out as well. I mean, I'm still buried under. I still need to catalog. I have. Let me see here. I don't know if you can see me at all on here, Troy, but I've got this box right here. This is stuff that I need to catalog and sort in this week, along with this pile here. I think this is all my TTMs from January and February. I still need to sort all of those in. So I've got a lot. I got my work cut out for me here, I guess. And like I said, still hoping to do another 10 as well to write out and mail out. We'll see if I get around to that. I mean, I may push back and just do 20 next week. So that seems to be kind of how I've been doing it occasionally here. So
right. Whenever you get the time, just get some out. So
exactly. Well, there you go. Kind of a longer show here this week. Actually, well, came out to about an hour, I think it looks like here, but I think we're about ready to wrap it up. So once again, a big thanks, Troy, for jumping on here as co-host as always, and to Ruthie for running things back in the studio and doing our editing on all of this stuff. Next week, we're going to have Clemente Lisi joining us in Clemente's World. We'll talk probably a little bit of soccer, some hockey, whatever's on his mind. We'll get all of that covered on here. And listeners, we want to remind you once again, we're going to have in about 3 weeks from now, we are going to be rejoined again by Les Wolf. And we are doing appraisals. So if you have something you want Les to take a look at and let you know what it's worth, is it authentic, anything like that, send it over to us and we'll get it on to him. Troy, once again, what is our email address here for all that?
That would be ttmcast@yahoo.com.
There you go. Send it on to us. We'll have Les take a look at it. And on the 23rd, he will be our guest on the show. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in here. And may your mailboxes be full. May your 9 boxes be signed. Or may your 9 boards be signed. Wow, they're running everything together. And wishing you many happy returns. We'll see you next week.
Everyone, be good.